One black suit has spawned some of Spider-Man's greatest and strongest villains, the Symbiotes. First introduced in 1984 when Spider-Man used an alien device to create a new costume. Unbeknownst to him, Peter Parker was bringing a parasitic alien, which would later be known as Venom, to Earth. Since that moment, the symbiotes have been a constant plague on the planet, corrupting new hosts, wreaking havoc, and producing new offspring to start the cycle all over again. As time has gone on, the symbiotes have only gotten more complex, and the threat they pose has only gotten bigger. We've learned that the species are creations of the dark primordial god, Null, molded from the living abyss of the universe millions of years ago. New symbiotes have been created that have proven that they can be heroes, and ancient symbiotes have re-emerged to show the true power of the species. That'll be our main topic for today's video. Dozens of symbiotes have been introduced to the Marvel Universe, all of them with unique powers and abilities. But which of them are the strongest? No need to wonder, because Plot Armor Comics has you covered. We'll be going over the 10 strongest symbiotes to appear in the Marvel Universe so far. For this ranking, we'll be sticking mainly to the Marvel 616 universe. In addition to this, we'll be considering the strongest version of each symbiote. It's not a fight unless you bring your A-game. Without further ado, let's get right into the video. These are the top 10 strongest symbiotes. Number 10. Scorn. One of the strongest abilities that the symbiotes possess is their ability to merge other entities, both organic and inorganic. They can assimilate almost anything and add their skills to themselves. Scorn takes that ability and pushes it to its limits. Scorn originates from the Carnage symbiote, which technically makes it Venom's grandchild. The Carnage symbiote was being used to develop prosthetic limbs made from advanced technology and symbiote matter. One of the first people to test out these biomechanical prosthetics was a woman named Tanis Neves. Unknown to Tanis, her new limb carries a spawn of Carnage. Eventually, Tanis merged with Carnage's spawn and became Scorn. Scorn is different from most other symbiotes because it is a machine hybrid. In addition to the usual symbiote powers like enhanced physical abilities and body morph, Scorn has mastery of technology and machinery. With the symbiote, Tanis can almost instantly understand any technology she encounters. Scorn has basically transformed her brain into a supercomputer, allowing her to communicate with technology. Scorn can fuse with machinery and integrate it into her body to form powerful weaponry, like a sonic cannon or a supercharged chainsaw. Scorn also has the power to manipulate machinery to engineer new inventions. It can merge two separate pieces of machinery into new and more powerful creations. While fighting Carnage, she used meatpacking equipment to build a machine that could separate the symbiote from its host. There is almost no limit to Scorn's control over technology. The symbiote is practically a fusion of Iron Man, Magneto, and Venom. Scorn's technological powers make it a serious threat, especially in urban areas where there is a high concentration of machinery. Scorn holds the number 10 spot because the other symbiotes on this list can either do more or are just overall stronger. Despite the fact that Scorn had a lot of potential and investing abilities, the symbiote wasn't around for long. When Null was awakened, the Scorn symbiote became the leader of a cult dedicated to the Dark God. While attempting to revive Carnage, who the cult believed was a prophet of Null, Scorn's host was savagely murdered. Tanis' spine was ripped out and consumed by Carnage to regain the trace amounts of the symbiote's codex that were needed to make it whole again. Scorn's host died and the symbiote was assimilated into Carnage. Scorn may be gone, but we still have plenty of stronger symbiotes to go over. Before we reveal more of the Children of Null, be sure to subscribe to the channel with notifications on to never miss an upload, and smash that like button for some plot armor today. Number 9. Hybrid. Over the years in the comics, Venom has produced several powerful offspring. Carnage is easily the most well-known, but Venom's other children can be just as dangerous, especially when they work together. An organization called the Life Foundation kidnapped the Venom symbiote and forcibly extracted 5 spawns from it. These spawns worked as guardians for the Life Foundation and became known as Agony, Phage, Riot, Lasher, and Scream. Each of these symbiotes had a unique ability or characteristic that separated it from the rest. Scream eventually became estranged from its siblings after murdering their hosts, but the other 4 remained together. Their familial connection became much more literal during the symbiote invasion of Earth. To stop the invasion, Eddie Brock and Venom released a psychic scream that wiped out the symbiote army. Unfortunately, the Life Foundation symbiotes were also affected by the scream. In order to survive, the 4 symbiotes merged together. The symbiotes became hybrid, an amalgamation of 4 distinct symbiotes. As one being, Hybrid is far stronger than the 4 separate symbiotes. Hybrid has all the same powers and skills as Agony, Phage, Riot, and Lasher. Agony possesses enhanced muscle mass that far exceeds that of a normal symbiote. This means that Hybrid has super strength even by symbiote standards. Agony can also produce a powerful acid spit that can easily burn through most material. Phage can morph its appendages into deadly serrated blades that act as its primary weaponry. Phage was also experimented on by the government, granting it enhanced sensory awareness, making it highly skilled in sniping. Riot's special skill is super speed, allowing it to move even faster than the human eye can track. Like Phage, Riot can morph its appendages, but Riot prefers to use blunt weapons like hammers. Finally, Lasher typically generates multiple whip-like tentacles from its back to attack and capture enemies. Lasher has the most unique ability out of the 4 symbiotes. It can extend itself to multiple hosts at the same time. This usually manifests in Lasher taking over small animals like birds and dogs that follow the orders of the primary host. Although Hybrid has the strength of 4 symbiotes, there is a downside to their fusion. Hybrid retains the distinct personalities of the original symbiotes. This can be a major issue for Hybrid's host, who has to deal with 4 new voices in their head. Luckily, that problem was solved when Hybrid bonded with Deadpool to take down Carnage. Deadpool is used to having multiple voices rattling around in his brain, so Hybrid was the perfect symbiote for him. Hybrid is one of the strongest symbiotes in the Marvel Universe, but the weakness of multiple personalities keeps it in the number 9 spot. The rest of the symbiotes on our list don't have that problem to worry about. In addition to this, they have their own special abilities that put them on a whole new level. Number 8. Sleeper. Venom has had a total of 7 children so far, but its youngest kid is by far the most special. Unlike the others, the last symbiote child, Sleeper, was actually a planned birth. Because Sleeper was expected, both Venom and Eddie Brock went to great lengths to ensure that this symbiote didn't turn out evil like all the others. Their efforts seem to have paid off. For the most part, Sleeper possesses a heroic personality and a selfless soul. Sleeper has a deep sense of loyalty toward Venom and Eddie. When the symbiote learned of Null and the danger that he represented, he immediately traveled back to Earth to protect its parents. Sleeper also has a special relationship with Eddie's son Dylan. Sleeper is pretty much a secondary guardian for Dylan that watches over and protects him when Eddie can't. When Dylan bonded with the Venom symbiote, Sleeper encouraged him to be a hero. Despite Sleeper's good nature, he's still capable of doing some dark things from time to time. Early in Sleeper's life, Venom's first host, a Kree soldier named Telkar, returned to force the symbiote to come back to him. The conflict ended with Sleeper bonding with Telkar and lobotomizing him, allowing the symbiote to pilot its new host like a puppet. Later on, Telkar was mortally shot while still lobotomized by Sleeper. After he died, Sleeper still used his body as its host. For a while, Sleeper was controlling the corpse of Telkar without issue. Even as a good guy, Sleeper still maintains that sinister edge that seems to run through the Venom family. Besides being a good guy, what makes Sleeper different from the rest of Venom's children are his unique powers. Sleeper is capable of producing special chemicals that have several useful effects. The symbiote can create pheromones that affect the emotional state of those nearby, allowing it to psychologically manipulate people. This ability can also be used to communicate with people telepathically by injecting thoughts into their heads with pheromones. The chemicals that Sleeper creates can be highly corrosive, be used as rocket propellant so it can traverse through space and tranquilize people. What makes this even more powerful is that Sleeper doesn't even need a host to use its chemical powers. Chemical creation isn't the only thing that Sleeper can do. Sleeper also has a special camouflage ability that allows it to manipulate light, turning it invisible at will. This, combined with its ability to manipulate the hormones of those around it, make it nearly impossible to detect Sleeper unless it wants to be found. Equipped with a nearly undetectable form of stealth, a subtle form of mind control, and the general powers of a symbiote, makes Sleeper a terrifying opponent to go up against. With someone like Sleeper in the number 8 spot, you know that the rest of the symbiotes on this list have to be the real titans of the symbiote species. Number 7. AntiVenom. The symbiotes give their hosts amazing powers that practically make them unstoppable monsters when compared to mortals. The downside to this incredible strength and power is that the symbiotes have a will of their own. Often they will oppose their host's wishes and attempt to corrupt them towards their own desires. Venom did this when it first bonded to Peter Parker and Eddie Brock. But there is a symbiote that exists that doesn't have this drawback. That symbiote is AntiVenom. During one of the times that Eddie was separated from Venom, his cancer returned and came close to killing him. Luckily, Eddie encountered a supervillain named Mr. Negative that has the power to control special forms of energy called the Light Force and the Dark Force. Mr. Negative used the Light Force to cure Eddie's cancer, but it also did something greater. Eddie still had remnants of the Venom symbiote in his bloodstream, which were fused with his white blood cells when Mr. Negative used his powers. This interaction created a new hybrid symbiote that would be known as AntiVenom. Unlike every other symbiote, AntiVenom didn't have a personality or independent will of its own. Eddie had full control of the symbiote's actions. With AntiVenom, you get all the powers of a symbiote without any of the backseat driving or corruption. The lack of personality isn't the only benefit of AntiVenom. The symbiote also has incredible healing powers that allow it to cure almost any illness or disease it encounters. This healing power also applies to toxins and radiation that exist in the body. Using AntiVenom, Eddie was able to cure a young girl of her heroin addiction. The AntiVenom symbiote was able to remove almost all the radiation inside Spider-Man's body, which would have permanently removed his powers. In fact, Spider-Man temporarily loses his powers whenever he's near AntiVenom now. That's not even the full extent of AntiVenom's abilities. AntiVenom is essentially a form of symbiote repellent. When Venom tried to rebond with Eddie, his skin was caustic to the symbiote. This means that AntiVenom can reject other symbiotes from taking over its host. AntiVenom also doesn't have the same weaknesses as other symbiotes. It is entirely immune to sonic or fire-based attacks that completely overwhelm other symbiotes. The only known vulnerability of AntiVenom is Mr. Negative's Dark Force powers, which were turned into a poison that destabilized the symbiote. AntiVenom is essentially the perfect symbiote-killing weapon and the perfect symbiote partner. But even a nearly perfect symbiote like AntiVenom can't compare with the rest of the symbiotes on our list. Number 6. Toxin. It turns out that another child of Carnage has found its way on our list. This child was actually the 1000th symbiote of his lineage. Carnage wanted nothing to do with its child, so shortly after it was born, it bonded to a police officer named Patrick Mulligan. When Carnage returned to murder Mulligan, the newborn symbiote manifested to protect its host. This was the first appearance of Toxin. Both Venom and Carnage feared that Toxin would be the strongest and most dangerous member of their race. While Toxin isn't anywhere near the strongest member of the symbiote species, it is much more powerful than both Carnage and Venom combined. Toxin outclasses the two symbiotes in raw strength and durability. Shortly after his birth, Toxin easily overpowered Carnage and threw the symbiote clear out of the building they were in. Automatic fire from high-caliber weapons seems to not affect him at all. Toxin was even able to beat both Carnage and Venom at the same time by itself. Although Toxin has the same weaknesses to fire and sonic attacks as almost every other symbiote, it does seem to be more resistant. Toxin has been shown to survive fire attacks that would have easily destroyed weaker symbiotes. In addition to just being extremely powerful, Toxin is also an excellent tracker that can find anyone, symbiote or otherwise, with just their scent. When Toxin was bonded with Eddie, it developed poisonous fangs that deliver a powerful toxic bite to its enemies. Toxin isn't the strongest member of his species by any margin. There are much older versions of the alien species that redefine the meaning of strength, like proto-symbiotes and symbiote dragons. With that said though, Toxin is easily the apex of the naturally forming symbiote species. We'll be seeing a hint of the power of symbiote dragons in our next entry. Number 5. Dark Carnage. Of all the symbiotes in the Marvel Universe, Carnage is easily the most infamous, just behind Venom. The first child of Venom was bonded with the notorious serial killer Cletus Cassidy, almost immediately after it was born. This union between a demented murderer and the spawn of an incredibly powerful symbiote produced Carnage. This new symbiote was a darker and more mentally unstable reflection of Venom, which enjoyed mass murder and cannibalizing its victims. Although Carnage is a powerful symbiote, its normal powers and abilities don't earn it the number 5 spot. It was only when Carnage was fused with a piece of a symbiote dragon that it achieved its strongest form. During one of the many times that Cletus Cassidy was dead, his body was recovered by a cult led by one of Carnage's children, Scorn. The cult wished to use Cletus as a vessel for the Dark God Null's resurrection. They used a small piece of a symbiote dragon, one of the first symbiote creations of Null, to revive Cletus. Once he was back in the land of the living, both Cletus and Null fought for control over the body. During this battle of wills, the offshoot of the dragon symbiote ripped out of Scorn's spine and consumed it in an attempt to stabilize itself. Because Scorn originated from the Carnage symbiote, it overwrote the offshoot's memories and personality with those of the original Carnage symbiote, effectively resurrecting it. Both Cletus and Carnage were now back in action, but now with the powers of a symbiote dragon under their control. Dark Carnage was finally born. Being connected to a piece of symbiote dragon didn't just make Dark Carnage more powerful, it also gave it new, deadly abilities. Dark Carnage could bond offshoots of itself to the maggots infesting Cletus's body to create brain worms that could infect targets. These infected hosts would be turned into Carnage doppelgangers that followed Dark Carnage's commands. Dark Carnage could also produce offshoots that attach themselves to victims, giving them all the same powers as the original Carnage. Characters like Miles Morales fell victim to this and became Carnageized. In a matter of minutes, Dark Carnage could create a nearly unstoppable army of symbiotes that followed its every command. With the powers of a symbiote dragon, Dark Carnage also lost its weakness to fire and sonic attacks, although it did gain a vulnerability to high voltages of electricity. When fully imbued with the powers of a symbiote dragon, Dark Carnage essentially becomes a demigod of symbiotes. The only thing that could be stronger than that would be the original source of that power, the symbiote dragon that made it all possible. Number 4. Grendel. The symbiote dragons were some of the earliest creations of the primordial god Null. They were used to massacre gods and wipe out entire civilizations in Null's war against all life. These monster dragons had the power to smother entire planets and infect those that lived there with the offshoots they could produce from their bodies. These infected victims would become soldiers in Null's dark army. The most well-known symbiote dragon arrived on Earth in the 6th century and became known as Grendel. While attempting to subjugate the planet, Grendel encountered the Asgardian god of thunder, Thor. Naturally, the god and the god killer battled one another. Ultimately, Grendel was struck by Thor's divine lightning and trapped inside a glacier. For thousands of years, Grendel would remain trapped inside the glacier, until it was released in the modern era when it was awakened by Null. Grendel retains the same weaknesses to sonic sounds and fire that plague all symbiotes, but it is highly resistant. Grendel withstood incendiary missiles and napalm flamethrowers without much trouble. Only the most extreme temperatures of fire and sonic attacks can even affect Grendel. The fire from a steel-smelting furnace was the only thing that came close to destroying it. Grendel's battle with Thor also seemed to have added a new weakness to electric attacks. Miles Morales' bioelectric Venom blast was able to temporarily incapacitate Grendel during its rampage through New York. This vulnerability appears to be written in its DNA now, because Dark Carnage was also weak against lightning after it merged with Grendel. The symbiote dragons are weapons of mass destruction, designed to kill gods and wipe out planets. Grendel is no exception to its species. On multiple occasions, it threatened to end life on Earth, and it took the godly might of Thor to stop it the first time. A symbiote that can compete with Thor deserves to be this high on our list. Number 3. Mr. E. During the early stages of Null's experimentation with the living abyss, he created proto-symbiotes. One of these proto-symbiotes was a primordial being known as Mr. E. Just like the symbiote dragons, Mr. E is a planet killer. And just like Grendel, when Mr. E came to Earth, he almost succeeded in ending all life. Mr. E is a creature made of living darkness, which gives him some unique abilities. He can turn himself intangible at will and merge with surfaces just like a shadow. Similarly to Grendel, Mr. E can produce offshoots that take over people and turn them into shadow slaves. When Mr. E first came to Earth, he attempted to kill all life. To do this, he used his shadow slaves to modify a shuttle to fire negatron particles into the sun. This would turn the ball of fire into a black sun under which only Mr. E and his shadow slaves would survive. Luckily, the proto-symbiote was stopped by a man wielding the power of Captain Universe. The powers of Captain Universe come from the Enigma Force, a god of light that chooses random individuals to fight against great threats of evil. Those that are chosen to become Captain Universe hold nearly unlimited power and are considered one of the strongest beings in the universe. Mr. E's plan to corrupt the sun was only thwarted by the cosmic powers of Captain Universe, who flew the shuttle that he was on into the sun. Mr. E was later resurrected by Null, but was again destroyed by Captain Marvel, channeling her powers through the Ebony Blade. Mr. E's caliber of opponents is what makes him such a dangerous threat. It took heavy hitters like Captain Universe and Captain Marvel to take Mr. E out. As a proto-symbiote, Mr. E is a world breaker that requires some of the absolute strongest heroes in the Marvel Universe to take down. Number 2. The All Black. Before the symbiote dragons or the proto-symbiotes, the first creation that Null forged from the living abyss was the All Black. Null's first creation was also his most powerful. Although the All Black was forged from living darkness, it was tempered by the divine energy of a celestial killed by Null. The All Black primarily takes the form of a sword, but it can't attach itself to its host like other symbiotes. This process made the All Black powerful enough to slaughter gods, but also instilled an intense fear of heat and sonic vibrations that have been passed down to every other symbiote after. Despite this fear, the All Black is incredibly resistant to fire and sonic attacks. It survived being thrown into a sun with pretty much no lasting damage. When wielded by Null, the All Black was used to massacre gods and anything else that fought on the side of light. This era of mayhem earned the All Black the names Necrosword and Godslayer. Other individuals besides Null have wielded the All Black after him. Characters like Gore the God Butcher have all taken control of the All Black at one point or another. Each of these characters received similar powers to Null, turning them into dark gods. Even when wielded by mere mortals like Gore, they gain godly powers like immortality. With the All Black, Gore could kill countless gods and survive attacks from Allfather Thor. The All Black lets its user move at hypersonic speeds, fire powerful blasts of dark energy, and bypass the immortality of gods and celestials. It can even create armies of shadow beasts that act as the wielder's minions. One of the most sinister aspects of the All Black is that it steals the souls of those that it kills. These slain souls are imprisoned in the corpse of the slain celestial that the All Black was created from. The more souls that the All Black takes, the more powerful it becomes. Like many of the other symbiotes on our list, the All Black does attempt to corrupt its host towards evil. It used Gore's hate for the gods to turn him into the God Butcher. The All Black is easily one of the evilest and most powerful weapons in the Marvel Universe, but there does exist one symbiote that puts even the Necrosword to shame. Number 1. Venom God of Light. We've seen symbiotes that can control technology, create armies, and kill gods, but the strongest symbiote of all is the first that was introduced in the comics, Venom. Things have never been the same since Spider-Man brought the Venom symbiote to Earth. Venom is the progenitor of most of the symbiotes on our list, and many of them owe their strange powers to it. Although Venom is a naturally powerful symbiote, its basic abilities don't warrant it being at the number 1 spot. The reason that Venom is the strongest symbiote in the Marvel Universe is because it was transformed into a being that could defeat even Null. Venom became a god. Towards the end of the King in Black storyline, Null had invaded Earth with his symbiote army and came close to winning. Eddie Brock and Venom attempted to oppose Null but were soundly defeated. Venom was forcibly removed from its host, and Eddie was murdered. Luckily, Eddie's consciousness survived and was transferred to the symbiote hive mind, a place where all symbiotes were connected with Null as the Nexus. Eventually, Venom managed to free itself from Null and rebonded with Eddie. Once they were together again, they were ready to take on Null. The two of them reformed as a colossal version of Venom that was powerful enough to crush symbiote dragons in its palm. Before the fight between Venom and Null could begin, Eddie was chosen as the new wielder of the Enigma Force. Suddenly, Eddie had the powers of Captain Universe combined with a symbiote. Venom was suddenly incarnated as Null's greatest enemy and polar opposite, the God of Light. With this power, Venom was on a whole new level. Venom could wield both Mjolnir and the Silver Surfer's board at the same time. The new God of Light was even able to merge the two weapons to create a cosmic battle axe that was able to decapitate multiple symbiote dragons in one swing. Null didn't even stand a chance against this godly version of Venom. Venom vaporized the All Black and destroyed Null's symbiote armor with ease. Null was ultimately killed when Venom flew him into the heart of the sun and watched him turn to dust. The Enigma Force left Venom shortly after Null was defeated, but it's clear that Venom reigned supreme amongst symbiotes. Not only did Venom single-handedly save the planet from a symbiote invasion, but also killed the creator of the symbiotes without breaking a sweat. The original symbiote that first appeared in the comics in 1984 has earned the title of the strongest symbiote. What do you think of our ranking? Is there a symbiote we missed? Let us know in the comments. Thank you for watching to the end. Until next time, keep that plot armor on ya. I'm Jack Stansbury, have a great day, and goodbye.